For the past 3 seasons, the Buckeyes just seemingly have not been able to get over their Maize and Blue demons. Heck, they watched them win a national championship last season. Well, that lit a fire under Ryan Day. And no, I'm not talking about the coaching hot seat. I'm talking about the will to win. This team is ready to go. Everybody has committed to this team. And will it lead Ohio State to a national championship in 2024? That is what you are here to find out today. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and welcome to prediction season. What does that mean? Well, it means I'm predicting all FBS level teams. Guys, that's 134 of them. Guys, it means if you root for an FBS team, I'm doing your favorite team. You got to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when your favorite team gets a video uploaded on my channel. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. It helps to support my channel in more ways than you can even imagine. If you want to continue to support my channel, like, comment, share, and do anything else you can to help interact with the channel. Anything you do to interact with the channel helps to support it, and it does mean a lot to me. With all of that out of the way, our second team preview and prediction here, Ohio State was next up, and they are here. The Buckeyes are ready to go in 2024. How do we do predictions this year? We dive through a team's offense, dive through a team's defense, and then we take a look at the schedule and predict every single game on the Buckeyes 2024 schedule. Makes sense? All right, hope so. We're diving on into it. A couple things before we talk about the Buckeye offense. Stats over here are last year's stats. You'll see offensive and defensive stats, and for your viewing pleasure, I have put the coaching staff down below under the team's logo. We're going to go position by position, starting out with the quarterback room. For the second straight year, the Buckeyes will be looking for a new starter because it was Kyle McCord last year, and he has entered the transfer portal. Without a guarantee to start in 2024, he has gone over to the Syracuse Orange. 3,170 yards last year, 26 touchdowns, 6 picks. Definitely not the production that you got from C.J. Stroud, but I think got too much hate for the player that he was at Ohio State. He really was a solid quarterback, a good player, and the Buckeyes will be missing him. Looking for a new starter, they bring in Will Howard from Kansas State. Now, the stat line will not wow you with Will Howard. 2,643 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 10 picks, but Will Howard is coming into a system that he just has the most talent surrounding him out of his entire career. This running back room, this wide receiver room, which we'll dive into. And of course, Will Howard has gone and won a Big 12 championship with Kansas State. He also brings a dual threat ability here at over 300 rushing yards and 9 rushing touchdowns last season. But there is not necessarily anything set in stone with this quarterback room. Devin Brown and a couple freshmen, and Aaron Nolley and Julian Sayin, a former Alabama commit before the retirement of Nick Saban, are coming over to this team to try to compete with Will Howard for that starting job. You do lose a running back to Sundays. Mayan Williams was a bowling ball type player, only 158 yards last year. He was pretty limited due to injuries, but a really good player that the Buckeyes will be missing. And 3 guys gone to the portal. Trainum, Hayden, and Pryor are all off to different programs. Meanwhile, though, this is a running back room that, although there are a ton more names than the 2 I have on screen, these are going to be the 2 that are going to highlight the running back room and highlight reels across the country all year long. It's the best backfield in the country. You could argue the best 1-2 punch in a lot of people's opinions, including my own. Travion Henderson comes back, 926 yards, 11 touchdowns, and when fully healthy, he is dynamite, and you get the best running back out of the SEC over the past couple years in Quinshad Judkins. In his career, over 2,700 yards, 31 total touchdowns in just 2 seasons of football. He's going to bring a dynamic element to this Ohio State backfield. Wide receiver room, you'll lose the best wide receiver room in the country. That was proven by his Biletnikoff Award last year. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Xavier Johnson gone to the NFL as well. Julian Fleming, Noah Rogers, a couple guys that leave through the portal. However, you got someone that's coming back, was an NFL draft eligible, much like Travion Henderson, decided to come back. That's Emeka Egbuka. He'll lead the wide receiver room that also has Carnell Tate, Jaden Ballard, Brandon Innes, Jeremiah Smith, and Mylan Graham, especially that of Jeremiah Smith. Some freshmen coming in that expect to make huge impacts for the Buckeyes. You're going to be missing tight end Cade Stover. He's going to go play on Sundays. Joe Royer's in the portal. Hey, tight end duo is going to look like this. G. Scott and Will Kakmarek, an Ohio transfer, comes over to this team. You do lose Matt Jones to the NFL and a couple guys that played some snaps for Ohio State through the transfer portal, but your starting 5 looks like this. Donovan Jackson, Josh Simmons, Josh Fryer, and Luke Montgomery all come back, and Seth McLaughlin, the Alabama center that has known for having snap troubles, will be coming in to play center for Ohio State this season, ahead of Carson Hinsman, who very well is going to be battling for that job as well. Okay, let's talk about the Buckeye offense. I've seen people say Will Howard is Kyle McCord 2.0. With his dual threat ability, I don't think so. He's a very experienced player. Again, last season was Kyle McCord's first season as a starter. Will Howard is experienced, and when you add a dual threat quarterback, it immediately upgrades the offensive potential of that team, especially in college. And he's got the most weapons that he's ever had to work with. The best 1-2 punch in the country in the backfield, a wide receiver room that is really, really talented, yet a little bit unproven, more unproven than we've come to expect out of the Ohio State Buckeyes, yet it's still one of the best wide receiver rooms in the entire country. Can the offensive line take a step up from where it has been? That is the big question here, and it doesn't sound like Seth McLaughlin has been having snap troubles in practice like he did at Alabama, which is a good sign for Buckeye fans moving forward. Let's talk about the Buckeye defense that was so good a season ago, and specifically, they were very, very good at being able to limit the explosive or the big plays. I think they only gave up one 40-yard play all season long, at least during the regular season, and it just so happened to be a fumble-rooski trick play that Rutgers ended up running against them. This is a really, really good defense, and it should be that way again in 2024. We got to look at who's leaving to know who's coming back, though. Michael Hall is gone off of the defensive line. Really good player for the Buckeyes during his time there. A great leader in that interior, provides some great pass rush. You'll be missing him. However, a couple NFL guys do come back. Jack Sawyer comes back. JT Tuimoloau comes back. You're also going to have Tyleik Williams, Ty Hamilton, and Caden Curry back, as well as Ederick Houston, who is a freshman that enters, figures to be a big impact player for the Buckeyes defense. Steel Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg are going to be coming back in that, no, my apologies. Steel Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg are gone out of this linebacker room. They are now going to be playing on Sundays. They were your two leading tacklers last year. Who comes back in this linebacker room, however, Cody Simon. They finally get a full season of CJ Hicks. Buckeye fans have been praying for that for a long time. Sonny Styles moves from a defensive back to his true position in linebacker, as well as Court Williams will be playing linebacker for this team as well. So you lose two very experienced players, should still be a pretty decent linebacker room, especially with the pass rush ability that Sonny Styles does have. Defensive backs look like this. A couple guys leaving the cornerback room out of the transfer or through the transfer portal, but it's one of the best cornerback rooms in the entire country. Davison Igbinosun and Denzel Burke are two of the most talented corners in the entire country. Igbinosun had 59 tackles last year. That was third on the Buckeyes, and Denzel Burke, when healthy, is the best lockdown corner in the country. 8 passes defended for him last season. Also a freshman in Aaron Scott could make some pretty big impacts for the Buckeyes this year. When you talk about the safety position, Josh Proctor is going to be leaving. He now is going to be playing on Sundays, and yes, while he definitely had some problems with injuries through his time with Ohio State, I mean, last year, 47 tackles, 8 passes defended, 1 pick. Can't argue with that. A lot of guys gone to the portal as well. Carter, Brown, Stokes are all moving on to different programs. However, you still got a really good safety room. Jordan Hancock, Lathan Ransom, and Lorenzo Styles are all very, very good players. And how about this? Yes, Keenan Nelson comes over from South Carolina, but the Buckeyes get Caleb Downs. The Buckeyes get Caleb Downs. Led Alabama in tackles as a true freshman last year under Nick Saban. 107 tackles, 70 of them by himself. Only 2 picks because people are smart enough not to throw his way. 3 passes defended. The impact he has by just being on the field, even if he's not generating tackles, which he generates about 5 or so every single game, is monumental. A significant upgrade to this Ohio State defensive back room that was already really, really good. It's stupid good now for 2024. And again, as I always say, kickers are people too. Let's give them some love. Jaden Fielding, your main field goal kicker, comes back, but Jesse Marco is off to Vanderbilt. A surprise transfer there for the Buckeyes from the punter position. Joe McGuire and Austin Snyder will be battling for that punting position more likely than not. Let's talk Buckeye defense. Like I said, they were really, really good at being able to limit the big plays last season, and they're probably going to be even better here. Again, this is a defensive group that bought in. Aside from Chambers and Eichenberg and Hall and some of those guys that went to the NFL, Sawyer back, Tuimoloau back, Sonny Styles is going to be a really good player, Igbinosun, Burke back, Hancock, Ransom back, Downs through the transfer portal. This is a Buckeye defensive roster that is absolutely ridiculously good. Ridiculously good. They're going to be one of the best defenses in the country yet again in 2024. we now have to take a look at the Buckeye football schedule as it's time for Ohio State's record prediction. Any game at home is going to be underlined, while any game on the road will be in italics or that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I have Ohio State being able to win pretty easily. Any game that's highlighted in yellow, ooh, watch out. It's a team that could give the Buckeyes a scare, potentially give them a loss, but I still think Ohio State will pull out the win in the end. And then red, of course, is a loss. So without further ado, let's go ahead and preview Ohio State's 2023 football schedule. These first 3 games here. Now, Ohio State did have a big non-conference game on hand. It was Washington, but then with them joining the Big Ten Conference, they have to nix it, put in a filler game. So they play 2 MAC teams and 1 team out of the Sun Belt Conference in Marshall. They should easily beat all 3 of them. Akron, I mean, come on. It's Akron, one of the best teams in the country, in Ohio State versus one of the worst teams in the country in Akron. Buckeyes will roll there. They will roll over Central Michigan, and then they get their first bye week. Probably not a great ideal spot for a bye week, but it's where they have one of their bye weeks nonetheless. And then they will be playing a game against Marshall in which they will win there as well. For these first 3 games for the Buckeyes, you're probably going to see multiple quarterbacks be played. You're probably going to see multiple play sets, multiple formations, multiple of just everything being used. They're going to find out what works. They're going to find out what doesn't. And they are going to head into Big Ten play with a really solid game plan, as these clearly are just 3 sort of feeler games, which may very well be what Ohio State needs this year with, again, the quarterback competition that probably is going to run all the way through fall camp. Ryan Day's been pretty hush-hush about who is leading that quarterback battle. Let's go ahead and dive on into the Big Ten Conference slate, and it starts out here with the Michigan State Spartans. Michigan State is a little bit of an interesting case to me because while they still have some really good talent on that team, there's a lot that leaves through the transfer portal, especially on that defensive line. A ton of phenomenal players are gone. A ton of really good players offensively are gone. But you bring in a head coach that is known for doing a lot with a little. And I'm talking about Jonathan Smith, who was the head coach at Oregon State. His former, or I shouldn't say his former, his alma mater. And he was able to turn them into a top 15 program in the Pac-12 Conference, RIP. Michigan State, I think, is going to be one of those teams that is going to be sneaky competitive this year, but even with this game being at home, they're not at the level to compete with Ohio State yet. This is one of the most talented teams in America, and Ohio State will not let this game slip by. They will go on the road in East Lansing and be able to win this game. Iowa's another interesting case here as well. So we know the Hawkeyes are going to play a really good brand of defense under Kirk Ferentz, but that offense last year was absolutely dreadful, and there's no better way to say that at all. Hey, they did get a new offensive coordinator in Tim Lester. How much is it going to help? I don't know if it's going to help as much as it needs to beat Ohio State. Maybe they can make a sneaky run back to a Big Ten championship game if everything works out right, but I see Iowa really not being super competitive with the Buckeyes in the horseshoe this game at all. Ohio State wins 5 in a row before the big one. You got to go on the road in Autzen Stadium and play the Oregon Ducks, and this is going to be one of, if not the best game of the college football season. Ohio State and Oregon are 2 teams that everybody has inside at least their top 5. Let's go. I think last I heard, Ohio State might be a 1 to 1.5 point favorite, which really doesn't mean anything. This is a pick'em game. Ohio State and Oregon, you could argue, are 2 very comparable rosters. You could argue that one roster or the other has the advantage. I just think this is going to be an absolute duel. Oregon has loaded up on great offensive players. Dylan Gabriel, especially now coming in through the transfer portal to be that quarterback. Tez Johnson and this wide receiver group are going to be absolutely phenomenal. And while Oregon has the edge in quarterback play, I think the Buckeyes have the edge in defense, which I think is ultimately what's going to help them win this game. I think that defensive line is going to be physical. They're going to make it hard for Dylan Gabriel. And this secondary, I don't think is going to let these wide receivers do much of anything. Now, granted, Oregon is too talented of an offensive team to be held back the entire game. But the Buckeyes will limit the damage, and this Buckeye offense will come through when it needs to. I got Ohio State pulling out the win on the road against the Oregon Ducks. Could Oregon win the game? Absolutely. Would it shock me? Not at all. But I do have the Buckeyes winning that one and moving on to Week 9 undefeated. So now they have their second bye week here after this Oregon game, which I think is a really good spot, especially if you lose that game. But nonetheless, we must continue. Nebraska's going to be a sneaky team. I know this game is at home, but watch out for the Cornhuskers. Dylan Raiola has a great wide receiver room, and Nebraska's going to be paired with a really, really good defense. They're going to have a lot of momentum rolling into this game here, but I still think the Buckeyes are going to easily be able to handle this one. I think Raiola, seeing how physical and how aggressive this defense is going to be, I think that the Buckeyes are going to be able to win that one there at home against the Cornhuskers. On the road against Penn State is another interesting case. Ooh, Julian Fleming coming to face his former team. Hello. Should be a very fun one here as Penn State's going to bring another physical brand of defense to the Big Ten Conference this season. And they do have some very nice pieces in the backfield. Katron Allen, Nick Singleton come back. Some good wide receivers, led, of course, by Julian Fleming. Did lose Keandre Lambert-Smith, which is a big blow. But until Drew Aller can develop that downfield ball, and I can see it, Ohio State can focus on shutting down this run game, and Drew Aller's not going to be able to beat them down the field. You need to be able to generate some big plays against this Buckeye defense because they simply just don't allow them. Penn State has not shown that they can do that. Drew Aller has not shown that they can do that, and I got the Buckeyes going into Happy Valley and winning that game. The next three games here should be pretty easy wins for the Buckeyes. Ryan Walters' group at Purdue should get a little bit better this year, but they're nowhere near the level of the Buckeyes. Ohio State will win that one. David Braun and Northwestern was a very good story last year. I think they're going to be another solid team in Big Ten play this season. However, again, nowhere near the talent to be able to beat Ohio State, and without true home field advantage, they're going to be playing it kind of like a lakeside stadium thing. It's going to be really weird. Ohio State will go in there and beat Northwestern, as they will beat Indiana as well. Now, the Hoosiers have some solid pieces and were able to give the Buckeyes a good run last year. This game now at home for Ohio State and Kurt Cignetti's first year with the program. I think the Buckeyes will be able to handle that one. And it all leads to here. Ohio State and Michigan. The Buckeyes have not been able to beat that team up north over the past 3 seasons, but they will be able to this year. It's going to be another close, competitive game. I simply just don't think Michigan has the quarterback necessary. Donovan Edwards, great running back. He has sliced Ohio State up the past couple of years and probably will have another really good game this season. Some really good defensive players for Michigan, especially Will Johnson. You have some great players on that defensive front seven, but whether it's Davis Warren or Alex Orji or Jack Tuttle, I just don't think Michigan has the quarterback necessary to be able to take advantage of some of the weaknesses that will be presented in this Ohio State defense throughout the course of the season. Now, that defense with the struggling offensive line could be a problem, but Ohio State beats Michigan. They end at 12-0. Now, 11-1 is the other likely case I see, with that loss being to Oregon, but this is one of the most talented rosters in America. Ryan Day says, come at me. And Ohio State's going to be one of the best teams in the country. I think they'll roll into a Big Ten championship game and get back to the college football playoff. Let me know your thoughts on the Buckeyes in the comments section below. Texas, you are on the chopping block next. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all of you guys when prediction season continues. Goodbye.